Hey, my friends, welcome back to another episode of Thriving Thoughts. I told you that season 3 was not yet over. I'm your host, Dr. Sherri. In his book, The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, John C. Maxwell says, if you place a small value on yourself, the world will never raise the price. If you've been on social media for any length of time, you will find no shortage of memes about how to stop caring about what other people think of you and how to be confident in yourself, how to love yourself, how to value yourself independent of what others think about you. There's a fix to that, though, isn't there? Because the truth is we do care about what other people think about us. We do look for affirmation and appreciation, acknowledgement from others. We do want somebody to compliment us if we have changed something about ourselves, if we've made a certain accomplishment, if we've engaged in a new habit and maybe stopped an old harmful one. We want people to notice. And when they notice and they say something to us, it makes us feel good, right? It makes us feel good about ourselves. That's a natural part of being a human being. The other thing that's natural is to come to rely upon the opinions, responses, or feedback from others as an indication of our worth. I'm going to say that again. It is normal. It has become normal. You see, it's normal, expected, typical for us to value what other people think about us. But we've allowed that enjoyment of being liked, acknowledged, appreciated, complimented, encouraged, endorsed. I mean, this goes from personal to professional, right? We've allowed that need, the enjoyment of that, to become the foundation of our worth, of our identity. One of the things that I tell the people that I coach with is that it's really important when you're developing a thriving thought world to get to a place where your behaviors and choices and feelings about yourself, right? All of that stuff that happens up here in your head, where your feelings about yourself are independent of the outcome of anything you decide to do. You see, sometimes we pursue appreciation unknowingly. It's habitual. Maybe, right now it's Christmas time, season of giving, if you celebrate Christmas and you celebrate gift giving. Sometimes we can't wait to see the look on that person's face when they rip open the present that we've so thoughtfully prepared and searched out and wrapped for them. And if we don't get that response, sometimes it's like a gut punch. And we go, they must not like me. How do we make that leap from they must not like the present to they must not like me? That leap happens in our minds. I had a friend once ask me, how do I stop caring what other people think? Here's my answer to that. It's okay to enjoy affirmations, acknowledgments, compliments from others. It's not okay to interpret the lack of affirmation, acknowledgement, praise, whatever it is. It's not okay to interpret that as saying something about your worth, your identity, who you are at the very core. This war that we're waging to stop caring about what people think, it's futile. You're going to care about what people think. And it doesn't get to define who you are. What is the difference then? Why should we care? Well, we care because it keeps us in check. We care because we're wired to connect. We care because we want to have relationships and we want to be around those who encourage us to grow and become stronger. So if we're surrounded by yes people all of the time, if we're surrounded by people who only praise, never criticize, if we're surrounded by people who only encourage but never encourage with the brutal truth, then we're missing out. Here's the critical tool of the thriving thought world. It happens in the space between your ears. It doesn't happen because of a look somebody gives you, or because of a behavior somebody else does, or an action that they take, or something that they tell you. None of that forces you to think negatively about yourself. See, we choose that. It happens in the space in between our ears, in our thought worlds. We take what has happened, an outcome, and we interpret it. Here's the challenge. This is where the work begins and ends, with you in your thought world, in your thinking world, in that space where you can make leaps and bounds away from something that somebody did or said and interpret it to be all about you. You know, what somebody else says or does is never about you. Did you know that? But here we are, taking what somebody else says or does as definitive proof of who we are or who we are not. That's right. Even if somebody pays you a compliment, it speaks more about them than about you. They're taking the time to acknowledge you. That's important to them, to share that with you, that they matter to you. But that doesn't make you matter more just because they said it. Do you see the difference? See, we can interpret either way. We can interpret when somebody says or does something good for us. Oh, I must matter. Oh, I must be important. I must be loved. I must be liked. I must be good at that thing. Or we can go the opposite direction. If we don't get the praise or the encouragement or the acknowledgement or the appreciation or the endorsement from somebody that we believe we should get endorsement from, then we interpret that to be, again, about us, our identity. Oh, I must not matter. You see, it goes either way, and you can't have one and expect not to do the other. So the work happens, my friends, when something happens outside of you, an outcome. Something happens outside of you. Somebody does something or says something. Sure, it's great to say thank you for the praise, but remember this. Their praise is about them, not about you. It's about their level of appreciation. It's about what's important to them to express. It's not about you. Keep your ego in check. Your value doesn't increase because somebody said you were good at something. Your value doesn't increase because somebody said, wow, that's such good advice. That's such an encouragement. You know what? I give this advice and this encouragement on this podcast, and I have no idea. And in fact, I have no way to measure who listens to it. I mean, I see the number of listens, but I don't know who's listening to it. I don't know what they're thinking. You could be thinking this is a load of malarkey. But guess what? It doesn't change my value. And even if you reached out to me and said, this was such a great podcast episode, I cannot permit that to change my value, my understanding of my worth. It goes both ways, my friends. So here is the Thriving Thought challenge for you. When something happens outside of you, take it at surface value. Do not take it in and make it validate your worth or invalidate your worth. That is up to you. That is in the space in between your head. And you know when you're cycling down that rabbit hole of thoughts that are not so thriving. Oh, wow, I must be, really important. Ooh, that makes me feel good. Listen, we have to keep ourselves in check there, because if we depend on that too much, if we interpret that as being about us, as being about our worth and our value, then we start to depend on it. And then we don't get it. And then we depend on that because then, oh, that must mean something bad about my value and my worth. So listen, care about what people think, right? Because we're wired to connect. You want to keep relationships. We want to be honest with ourselves, but never let what people do or don't do, say or don't say, increase or decrease your value. And that, my friends, is up to you to stop it dead in its tracks. It's up to you to speak life and truth to yourself. This thriving thought world, it's tough work, my friends. But if this episode and this message does anything, I hope it encourages you to be aware that when you get praise or when you get criticism, that neither must have the power, you must give neither the power to increase or decrease your self-worth. That's up to you and the truth that you speak over yourself. I hope you choose to speak life and truth. I hope you choose to believe the truth that regardless of the outcome, you matter, you are loved, you are needed, you are necessary, you are irreplaceable, and that's what makes yours a thriving thought world. So we are all finished up with the interviews for season 3, but my friends, I am tuning in 3 times per week over the next 2 weeks to share with you some thoughts that I want to close out the year with and hopefully set you up to have an even more powerful 2021. But you don't have to wait until January 1st to start using these. That's why I will introduce them in bite-sized tidbits like this episode. So tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this week and next week for a new tidbit on how to actively live out and establish that thriving thought world. It's not elusive, my friends. It's attainable if you're willing to put in the work. So until Wednesday, my friends, share this episode with a friend. If you're an Apple Podcasts user, please do rate the show 5 stars. It'll help this message to get in front of more people that need to hear that caring about what others think is okay, but it's not okay to let that dictate their value. Until Wednesday, my friends, speak truth over the lies so you can